So today I'm going to show you guys how I set up one of the racks in the wall of 120-gallon aquariums. Now this rack is completely ready to go. Top tank needs to be scaped, but we'll get to that in due time. The bottom tank is ready for fish. The only thing these tanks don't have right now is lighting. This is an interesting rack because it posed a couple of interesting situations. Let's start off with the backgrounds here. Now I don't have lights installed right now, so we're just going to go ahead and use this little spotlight to take a look. So here's one of the backgrounds installed. This is like a Malawi background, and that's going to be a Malawi aquarium. There's some reflection there right now, but you guys seen me install these backgrounds. In fact, you've seen me unbox all of these. These ones here on the bottom, this is one of those Aqua Decor backgrounds from aquadecorbackgrounds.com. In fact, the next one is as well. Ultimately, though, you guys will remember this tank for a simple reason. It's a solid background. The rest are actually hollow in behind. All I got to do there, silicone them in place, run some plumbing behind it however I want, and that's it. But this one being solid, again, posed some serious issues for me. How am I going to run all of the plumbing behind it? And when it came to the plumbing, well, you guys know that customaquariums.com provided me with these aquariums and racks, but they do like complete systems, including all of the plumbing. And I've had an eye on their H2O overflow as well as their siphon stopper for a long while. This is the return, this is the drain. Reason being is because it's unusually different. The H2O overflow is basically a surface skimmer, everything built into one. You only have to drill your aquarium in the back and toss it in, and that's it. It's pretty simple. You don't need a weir, you don't need overflows and standpipes. This is it. So I really wanted to try it, but I was interested in how loud it was going to be. Is it going to gurgle? What type of noises is it going to be? So I definitely had to implement it into this racking system and try it out, and I'm pleased to say it's actually surprisingly silent. Now the siphon stopper is interesting because it's actually kind of big, almost a little gaudy, but it has an interesting feature that you can direct all of the flow under the water. Now the problem with directing flow underwater with a return like this is that once the power shuts off and this is below water, we now have a siphon that is created, and it's going to start draining the tank down to your sump, and you're going to flood your sump. Water will stop draining once it gets to the bottom. So we usually have to drill holes or whatever at the top to make sure that there's air allowing to escape and push out the air when it starts to siphon. But they created the siphon stopper that basically the way this works is water's returned. Some of it's kind of squirted out the top and directed down to the top of the tank. No real purpose for that other than when this shuts off, there's holes up here that allow air in that doesn't let it siphon. So I can now put this underneath the surface of the water, get better circulation instead of kind of focusing on trying to keep it near the top. So the top of it kind of breaks the surface so we don't get that back siphon. So I also wanted to try these. There's a problem though with the solid background. Being solid means that these are going to be really difficult to install. So if you watch the video of when I installed these, basically they're all silicone directly in place. There's no room behind this one at all. So I decided I'm going to drill directly through it and just slide this right on, because the tops of these are actually above the surface of or above the trim of the tank. It's kind of set up so that you only see the little elbow. This is the only thing in your aquarium. Instead of a big weir or lots of plumbing like you usually see, you only see this. So I thought, why not? It's black, it's going to blend in, it's not going to look that bad, so that's exactly what I did. I also did it for the return. However, this tank doesn't need a return, and I'm going to show you why in a minute, but I also installed the return just in case I ever want to divert flow through there. But I'm not. You see, the way this works is I'm going to have water pumped from the sump all the way up to the top aquarium. All that water being pumped up to the top aquarium then has to overflow through this H2O overflow, which then drains down to the second tank. You see, these are going to be using the same sump, so why not connect them on the same system? So we see this pipe in the back here, that's just a hose, that just drains right into this tank right here. Now again, this is all just installed recently, so I've got to make some changes to kind of make it look a little bit better. But you get the idea. Water then overflows to the top and goes down to the sump. Now I did it this way so both systems can be on the same sump. I save on equipment, save on energy usage, and increase the overall volume of the entire system, making it around 300 gallons instead of 120 and 120. Now we got 240 plus about almost a 60-gallon sump below. Pretty basic setup, and it runs really well. I've done many tanks like this. I used to run my discus breeding systems like this. The only downside is if one tank has a problem, the bottom tank is going to have that problem as well. So installing its own return on each aquarium means that I can, split the returns on the pumps, cut the sump in half, which is, I'll show you how to do that in a second, and maybe install another pump and run them individually if I ever need to. But with proper quarantine procedures and, pristine water quality, this is typically rarely an issue at all. Now that brings us to the sumps. Now you guys will remember these sumps, and don't judge my mess here. It is a mess. I've been busy. I've got to clean it up under here. But again, don't judge me. Watch this. These things come right off. Actually, they come off all of them, so total and easy access to everything. I love it. But these are like custom sumps where you can pick and choose how you want to link them together. Like they've got pre-filters, they got main sumps, they've got reservoirs of all different sizes, and you kind of link them up and chain them together however you want. I really like that about them. I decided I'm going to go with 2 of their main sumps and link them together, but they don't come linked together. You got to get creative and kind of do it yourself, although you could ask them to do it most likely. I decided I want to do it because I want to use uni-seals. Now you've seen me use these before in my big systems when I had that 540-gallon tank and I built the filter out of a couple of 55-gallon barrels. I use these to kind of link them together. These are like bulkheads, but they're solid rubber. The way these works is simple. You drill a hole just big enough for the male end to go through the hole, and then you can insert a pipe into it. And when you insert the pipe, the fitting is so tight that it expands the rubber and it forms a watertight seal. I just have to put one on each side of the sumps like this and a pipe to connect them. It could be a small pipe or a long pipe, however long I needed it. But if I use regular bulkheads, they take up a lot more room. So I went with these because they're flush to the tank, and I can make these quite close and still get about 8 or 10 inches over on this side for electrical equipment, battery backups, and whatnot, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Since we're under here though, let's talk about the returns. Like I said, I plumbed this tank to have a return just in case, and I just put a plug on the end. So there is a hose. I can attach a pump to this at any time, and the return, I just can go ahead and push one in, and it's good to go. As for the sump, I would have to simply block off the 2 ends. I just use some bulkhead caps or some pipe caps and cap them off and run them individually if I ever needed to. So super easy to run this. Now the way these sumps work is actually quite simple. If you look at the lines here, you see how it kind of goes up and down and kind of over here as well. That's the flow of the water. For example, as water enters this, this first chamber, it has to flow through a bunch of trays of media first. There's about 7 of them in there, all filled with biological media. Custom Aquariums actually makes their own biomedia, so I just filled it with that. Then obviously comes through the bottom and has to flow up through a baffle basically. Now in this section, when it comes up over that baffle, this section is typically where you would have your return pump. But I've got it filled with a couple of large blocks of marine pure biological media. I also put my heater over here, which isn't turned on, but if I ever need to turn it on, it'll be there. Now your return pump is typically in here, but again, I put this extra biological media in here, and instead of being returned to the aquarium, it flows through the uni-seal with a pipe through it into the next sump, where everything that we've seen here is repeated here. So water has to flow through, first being mechanically filtered, then a bunch of biological media coming through the bottom, up over the top, and into the last return, and that is where the return pump is. Return pump sends water up through the back of the aquarium and back through the top through their siphon stopper. Now the heater's not on because I'm trying to make these systems as energy as efficient as possible. I only want the pumps running, and sometimes the pumps will get warm enough to heat the water, but I'm also heating the air in this room, and so far it's working out really well. It's very comfortable in here, and the tanks are sitting at about 26.5 degrees Celsius, which is essentially perfect for most fish. Now on to water changes and maintenance. I thought I want this to be really simple and easy. So I decided what I would do is simply have them drill the backs of the tanks at the halfway point, and I figured I can hook a hose up to that on a ball valve, and when I want, I turn the ball valve, drain half the water, fill it back up, and I'll be doing that manually. But it makes it really easy to drain the water, and I'll be able to fill it back up quite quickly as well. And if I really wanted to, I could drain through that ball valve and then fill it back up as well. But since those ball valves are behind the aquarium at the halfway point, I decided instead of drilling through them and having any sort of plumbing showing, I would just drill a bunch of little holes. And you can see there in the middle of the screen where there's a bunch of 6mm holes drilled right through the background. And that's going to work out perfectly. Down here, you can't even see it because it's actually behind the rock, and I just put a little filter screen on there. It actually looks way better in these tanks, for example. There it is there. Same idea, a few holes drilled. You know, once we have actual lighting on these tanks instead of a big bright spotlight, those are not going to be noticeable at all. Now I can attach a hose to this ball valve, open it up, and drain the top tank, or this one, attach a hose and drain the bottom tank. As for the return pump, I'm using the Vectra M1 by Ecotech. This is a pretty awesome pump. The downside about this, the only thing I don't like, and it's going to sound weird, but it's too quiet. I can't hear it at all, and I know that'll sound weird to a lot of you guys, but I like to hear a little bit of buzzing or, you know, a little bit of sound, because sound means it's working. And with this being so quiet, I often have to check my phone, make sure that it's on, or check the water surface, you know, come in here and visually take a look, just because it's that quiet. And I can only imagine in time it's going to get more and more quiet. Now this pump pumps about, I think it's 2,000 gallons per hour. And with pumping up 8 feet, I'm getting about 1,200 gallons per hour, maybe a little bit more, but that's way more than I actually need. The aquariums are 120 gallons each, and on a sump filtration, I only want to turn the tanks over, like filter them completely, about 4 to 6 times per hour. With the pump pumping around 1,200 gallons or more, that means I'm doing them 10 times per hour, not giving the bacteria in the sump enough contact time with that water, so I slow it down. However, that's not enough flow for a 120-gallon aquarium in general. You see, filtration and flow rates for that are separate from circulation in the aquarium. Sometimes you'll get lucky and, you know, the flow rate that you need for your filtration is enough circulation for your aquarium, but a lot of the times it's not. You've got to add in an air stone or some sort of a power head or a pump or a wave maker. So that's what I did. Each one of these tanks got an MP40. It's the Vortec Quiet Drive, all controllable as well. With this one, though, I set it into a couple of modes. In the early mornings and the evenings, like throughout the night, I set it into a lagoonal random, meaning that it's going to be a low flow, soft changes throughout the day. It's not like continuous flow. I mean, the control you have over this equipment and these pumps and what you're able to tell them to do is absolutely insane. But I run them about 25% at lagoonal random, which is, you know, if you take a look, you can kind of see some of the options that you can go through, and I run it right here. So in the evening while the fish are resting, I'm still getting the circulation in the tank. The pumps are controlled to automatically turn down and then go into this mode where the flow is randomly changing a little slowly, not as dramatic. And then in the daytime, when you know, the fish are alert, they're swimming, I want them to get their exercise and you know, work up that appetite. I set it to reef crest mode. Now, reef crest sounds like the ocean, and clearly it is. However, the flow that I'm after is not continuous either. You know, continuous flow in an aquarium is great at times, but it's identical flow. Nothing's really changing or adapting or, you know, kind of stirring things up. With these types of flows, I'm getting just that. And when it comes to the reef crest, as you can see, the graph here is so much more dramatic. It's much more higher and lower, so I'm getting a lot more. And I turn that to 50% of the capability of that pump. And the flow rates on these are about 4,500 gallons per hour plus. So I'm definitely getting a ton of circulation in here, as well as proper filtration. Now I can control all of that through my phone or my desktop. However, I wanted the controllers to actually be right at the sides of the aquariums here. Reason being is it's just really quick access to turn them off. I can grab them like this, pull them out, and, you know, have full access to do whatever I need with them. Now I need to clean up the wires and make it look a little bit more pretty, but, you know, it's good enough for now. We'll come back to making this place pretty when we have time. As for the actual scaping of the tank, I didn't have to do a whole lot, and that was because of the type of fish that I'm going to be keeping. This is going to be a Lake Tanganyika tank. Up top is a Lake Malawi. I still have lots of work to do up there in terms of scape. I can do a lot more, but based on the fish that I'm going to be keeping in here, I should be doing two things. One, sparsely adding in rocks and having a very fine sand substrate. You guys will find out this Tuesday what I'm stocking it with, but to give you a closer look, what I did was add in these foam rocks to the bottom. Now these rocks are solid foam, just like the background was. I kind of positioned them so they'd be closer to the background. I've got to kind of even out this sand a little bit more, but I thought this looked most natural, and I really, really enjoyed it. Now with the fish that are coming in here, you guys are going to be absolutely blown away. It's going to look incredible. To give you a hint, I've kept them before, but not this variant. Now, a lot of you have also asked, how am I going to power these aquariums? And each one of these tanks has its own dedicated 15 amp GFCI outlet. So no worry about powering these tanks at all. Now, I know this isn't the typical type of video that you guys are expecting to see from me. I generally don't do rundowns on tanks like this, but I really wanted you guys to get an idea and look behind the scenes of how everything's going to work, because we've got to do it 4 more times. And this is kind of a test video as well. If there's something else you want to see, or you want me to talk about something else as well, we've got 4 more opportunities to do so, and clearly tons more videos that we could potentially make. I'm making like almost 5 videos a week now. I'm only supposed to be doing 3. I'm so used to doing 1, but I'm so excited about what's going on. I can't sit around and not show you guys this. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'd also like to thank you for watching. And if you join me this coming Tuesday, we're gonna stock this tank.